Do you think that the Warriors could be able to overcome their road woes now that we're coming very close to the playoffs?
The only hope for the Warriors in the postseason is going to be is if they solidify a top four seed, which I do not believe is going to be possible with only 12 games left. And the Warriors got quite a bit of road games, if I'm not mistaken. I'm looking at their schedule right now, and I'm trying to see because I actually just hit refresh instead of hitting the other button. So they're going up against the Hawks. They're going up against the Grizzlies. They're going to Houston. They're going to Dallas. Then they have a home game for the first time against the 76ers. Uh, then they end it. Yeah, I mean, guys, right after the 76ers, they're home against the Timberwolves. They're home against the Pelicans, home against the Spurs. Then you go to the Nuggets. You're home for the Thunder, and then you end the season on the road against the Kings and the Trailblazers. The majority of their remaining games are on the road. Golden State is not looking good, at least at what I had said in solidifying a top four record. Because what I'm thinking in Steve Kerr's mind is if we solidify a top four seed, we get to host a series or we get to host a playoff series, which in terms means that it's going to be at home first, two, then away two, then 1-1-1-1, back and forth, and whatever have you. So Golden State, their strategy's got to be we got to win the first two at home. Hopefully, maybe get one away, and if not, we got to win everything else. Like if everything goes to a game seven, Golden State's going to end that series at home, and they're just going to have to win every game at home. And if they lose every game on the road, it makes no difference. But that's not a good strategy. I know that they're missing Andrew Wiggins. I know that Klay Thompson had rolled his ankle, but he's been killing it since the All-Star break. Steph Curry was hurt for a while. He just dropped 50 the other night. So I mean, like, it's not that they're lacking. It's just they can't get it done. I don't know if it's chemistry. I don't know if they go cold when they're away. I have no idea what runs through their mind. But the fact that Steph's out here averaging 30 points a game at age 35, dropping 50 points against the Clippers, who are the fifth seed, who are right above them by just one game. This could have been pivotal in changing the direction of how their season went because they would have swapped with the Clippers, if I'm not mistaken. And then you have the remaining schedule that you have. Not to say that all the matchups are not favorable, because obviously when you got Houston, when you got obviously the Spurs in there, the Pelicans without Zion, you have some favorable games that you can get it done. It's just a matter of can Golden State finish a game? I don't understand what's happening. The fact that if you're not in the Chase Center, you're basically one of the worst teams in the league. It's too inconsistent for me. So if they do go to the playoffs, I think it's not going to make a difference because I don't see them getting a top four seed. I think they're probably a first round exit just because of how bad they play on the road. And I think unless Andrew Wiggins comes out of nowhere and turns the season around and gives them that spark that they need, but he is dealing with a personal matter, I think the Warriors, unfortunately, maybe bounce out of the first round.
Kev, when we look at the Warriors on the road, the one thing that strikes me the most is Kev, they're giving up a bunch of points on the road. Scoring points with Golden State is never really a worry. But when you look at Golden State over what I would consider the last 10 years or so, defensively, they've been one of the more efficient teams on the defensive side. I mean, there was a stretch in time when they were on their dynasty run. Defensive efficiency was their name of the game. And that's why they were one of the most successful teams in the 2010s. But you look to now, these guys are getting older. Steph's getting older. Clay's getting older. Draymond's getting older. Their core roster is getting older. And, unfortunately, with Andrew Wiggins being out of the fold, who's a huge defensive piece, mind you, I think that they're definitely missing his presence. And, when Steph goes out there and drops 50 points and they still lose, that is very disconcerting for the team moving forward. Kev, let's look over just the last couple of games in particular on the road and how many points that they're giving up in the process. So, obviously, like Kev mentioned, you look at their last road game. They play the Clippers. They gave up 134 points. Mind you, the Warriors scored 126. So, offensively, they're still scoring. It's that they're just giving so many more points on the other side of the court. It's just a recipe for disaster. You look at the Grizzlies game. That was on March 9th. They gave up 131 points. The game before that on the road, they played the Thunder. They gave up 137 points. Against the Lakers, they gave up 113 on the road. After that, they had a little bit of a home stretch. They played the Lakers back in February. They lost that game. They allowed 124 points. This is just not winning basketball. and it's mostly on the defensive side. Steph can go out there and drop you 50 points, but if the defense is not backing you up on the other end of the court, what's it worth then at that point? So when it comes to Golden State's record right now, just the dichotomy between their home record and their away record is so striking. It's almost as if you're seeing two different teams because when you look at their home record, it's one of the best home records in the NBA. Essentially, you would think that the Warriors with their home record, they've only lost, if I look at it correctly, I'm just going to pull up their home record. They're 29-7 at home. They would be in the same company with the Grizzlies and the Nuggets. So essentially, they'd be a top three seed if you just look at that statistical number. And then you look at the road woes that they've had this year. They are in company with teams like the Spurs and the Rockets. They are 7-27 on the road. The Spurs, like I said earlier, they're 6-27 on the road. And the Rockets are 6-28 on the road. Those are abysmal numbers. And the fact that the Warriors are in that same category with teams like that, it's just striking to me that you're seeing this from a defending title team just the past year. So, even if Andrew Wiggins were to come back into the fold, there's no guarantee that he would solidify it to the point where their defensive rating would go up tremendously. Maybe he would help out a little bit. But as far as I see it, the Warriors are the sixth seed in the West right now. And even though the West is pretty logjam right now, I have my doubts about Golden State. I wish that I was a little more optimistic with Golden State, simply just because Steph could carry them to the promised land. But the fact that their defense is so lacking, especially on the road, and that's been the biggest contributor in why they've struggled on the road this year. When it gets into a playoff series, there's no guarantee that they're going to win any road games, depending on who they play. And even if you were to look at who they would potentially play in the first round of the playoffs, if they were to start today, they play the Grizzlies. And the Grizzlies, when it comes from an offensive perspective, they are a very tough team to stop. So they got to figure this out quick, fast, and in a hurry. Because if they don't finish the season on some sort of a heater to improve their record overall and improve their standing in the Western Conference, I'm with Kev 100%. I think the Warriors get knocked out of the first round. I think right now it's all but certain that they're going to get knocked out of the first round if they keep playing like this. I think if they get on some sort of win streak and they buck this trend on the road, maybe they can win the first round in the NBA playoffs and maybe get to the second round. And I think after that, I think they'd probably get eliminated. But if they're not careful, if they keep falling, if they could potentially be in a play-in tournament situation, and there's no guarantee that they could move on to get into the playoffs. They could potentially find themselves on the outside looking in if they were to lose some of those play-in tournament games. So, look, Steph is one of the most generational players that we've seen in NBA history. Klay Thompson's a sharpshooter. They're the Splash Brothers, but they can only get you so far. If they're not protecting the rim on the other side of the court, if the whole team is just not playing defense up to snuff on that side of the court, they're going to fall short. And this year on the road, they have fallen tremendously short in that regard. And I think it's going to be the biggest impediment for them if they get into the playoffs.